Chapter 51-57. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the young lady who was floating in midair. The sky was filled with flaming dark rays, pouring down and covering the entire sky. The entire Demon Destruction Mountain was covered in a layer of red light. It was as if flames were burning the entire Demon Destruction Mountain. That is it the Empress of the Divine Emperors? Is it? Useless Seventh Lady, Lord Dizun, please be gentle. Chapter 51-58. It is indeed you, the person behind the scenes of the gloomy palace. 3. Please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 51-58. Too bad, this power does not belong to you. The young lady's clear voice was filled with extreme coldness, with a hint of ridicule. Her slender fingers flicked and the silver strands shrunk even tighter. The black-robed man's face revealed a pained expression. The young lady's pink lips rose slightly as she smiled indifferently. Do you really think that by stopping me from inheriting the God Emperor's inheritance, you will be able to get my mother's inheritance? She raised her legs slowly and stepped on the man's body. A strong and domineering aura was emitted from her body, like a king who was above the 9 heavens. And the person she was stepping on was merely an ant that could be easily pinched to death. That kind of almighty and unattainable. Too bad. The designated successor is me, and the person who is recognized by the Divine Phoenix's inheritance is also me. Yi Qing Luo laughed softly as the profound rays were as sharp as a sharp blade, falling onto the man's body. And you have to pay the price for killing old Mu and injuring Xian. The man let out a muffled groan as he forcefully endured the overwhelming profound light. The silver strands fixed him in place and he had no way to resist, so he could only bear it. You look so pathetic. The young lady muttered sarcastically, I'm afraid, you've never been in such a pathetic state before. Palace of Darkness, the mastermind. When the young lady said the last 4 words, that black-robed man's pained expression froze slightly. He gritted his teeth and squeezed out the words, how did you know my identity? This Devil Extermination Mountain is Palace of Darkness's territory in the Devil region, which means Palace of Darkness roughly knows the location of the God Emperor's sovereign. But because of the Demon Dragon King's seal, the God Emperor's sovereign's aura was concealed. The mastermind of Palace of Darkness has repeatedly found trouble with me and created so many troubles. Isn't it because they want to obtain the profound flame diagram from me and find the God Emperor's tomb to obtain the God Emperor's inheritance? So, to be able to rush to my mother's tomb in such a short time and attempt to stop me from receiving the inheritance. Other than the mastermind of Palace of Darkness, I can't think of anyone else. Listening to the young lady's patient explanation. Although the man's face was filled with ruthlessness and coldness, one could see that his facial features were regular and handsome. Once again, his face twisted. Suddenly, amidst the pain, he laughed coldly. Your analysis sounds pretty good, however, you're wrong about one thing. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. I established my secret faction in Devil Destruction Mountain not because I know the location of the Divine Emperor's tomb. Or rather, I have no clue about the Divine Emperor's tomb. He grinned coldly. Otherwise, why would I send so many people to hunt down that pair of impostors who followed the Bone Sovereign? Hearing Secluded Palace's mastermind denying it, Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. Her analysis, wrong? If the other party did not know the location of the tomb of the Divine Sovereign, how could he possibly find his way here so quickly? Something was definitely wrong. He's right. He doesn't know the location of this emperor's tomb. Suddenly, a slightly weak and extremely ethereal voice rang out leisurely in everyone's ears. When Yi Qing Luo heard that voice, she immediately turned around. Amidst the raging flames, she could faintly see a figure floating towards her. On seeing that figure, Yi Qing Luo's eyes suddenly lit up. Mother? Chapter 51-59. She originally thought her mother had used up the last of her obsession to complete the transmission to her. After that, just like the tomb guardians, disappeared from the world. Because of this, before the God Emperor's power had completely merged with her body, she started to take action against the people behind the secluded palace. Old Tomb's death, Ah Xian's injury, coupled with her mother's disappearance. All of his anger was suppressed in this instant. Now that she saw that her mother was still around, Yi Qing Luo's agitation was imaginable. Feng Ji's movement speed wasn't fast. As he floated over neither too fast nor too slow, his voice was brimming with anger and coldness. Because when I built this tomb chamber, it was built to deal with him. She enunciated every word clearly. Feng Ge came to Yi Qing Luo's side. That blazing red dress, under the dazzling red light, seemed illusory and dreamy. As though the next moment, it would merge into the red light, disappearing. This made Yi Qing Luo's heart feel unbearably tight. She clenched her slender fingers as she stretched out her hand to support Feng Ge. Her voice sounded a little tight, "Mother." However, Feng Ge avoided her touch. Indistinctly, it seemed to brush past an extremely cold chill. Yi Qing Luo's hand paused. "Mother?" Feng Ge gave her a gentle smile, then her vision turned towards the black-robed man. That pair of beautiful eyes were filled with resentment and hatred which others couldn't understand. She congealed that familiar yet unfamiliar face, as though it was a lifetime ago. No. It was indeed a lifetime ago. After all, Yin and Yang were separated by 10,000 years. She chuckled softly. That faint cold laughter had a chill which made one's scalp go numb. "Huang Wuyo. You didn't expect this, right? This empress not only schemed against you 10,000 years ago, today. I still schemed against you." She said every word clearly, with emphasis on her words. The black-robed man stared at that illusory figure without blinking, as fury surged in his eyes. Hearing Feng Ji's ridicule, he gritted his teeth, but before he opened his mouth, he laughed out loudly. "Schemed against this seat? Using your life to plot against me? It's a pity, you calculated everything, but you didn't calculate that after 10,000 years, the daughter you've always been protecting, in other words, my own daughter, will personally undo the seal that you, the mother, personally laid down." After he finished speaking, he burst into laughter. The silver threads wrapped around his body tightened in an instant. He only let out a muffled groan and took a few heavy breaths. But as he coughed, he laughed incessantly. "Shut up." Feng Ji's face darkened and her beautiful eyes turned sharp. "What right do you have to say that? Luo is my daughter, my only daughter." She took a deep breath and tried her best to maintain her trembling spirit body. "Huang Wuyo, don't be too happy. 10,000 years ago, I was able to seal you. 10,000 years later, my daughter, the one who will inherit the royal bloodline of the divine emperor, my daughter, will definitely seal you again. Or even, kill you." Feng Ge spat out the last 3 words one by one. The black-robed man, who was addressed as Huang Wuyo, heard Feng Ji's words, but there wasn't a single trace of panic on his face. Instead his lips curled upwards, that pair of sinister eyes, which seemed to be filled with all the evil in the world, looked towards Yi Qing Luo with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Following that, he laughed, "But, she is also my daughter. A daughter who kills her father will be punished." Chapter 5160. Are you even fit to be called father? Feng Ji's voice was trembling, her eyes seemed to be burning with a scarlet-red glow. "Huang Wuyo, you're not qualified. Not qualified to call me father." The conversation between the two fell into Yi Qing Luo's ears. Like a sudden clap of thunder, Yi Qing Luo's mind went into a daze. Biological daughter? Father. The mastermind of the secluded palace, that man called Huang Wuyo. Was it her father? The man who had deceived her mother and schemed everything, just to dig open her heart and take away the divine phoenix profound heart jade. That man? She must have heard wrongly, right? How could this be possible? Yi Qing Luo's breathing stagnated, unable to regain her senses from Huang Wuyo and Feng Ji's conversation. Because, she knew that she didn't hear wrongly. She also knew that they weren't joking. And she knew that there were actually many things that could be traced. That was why she was in such a daze. That was the mastermind of the secluded palace who killed people like flax, played with people's hearts, created chaos and attempted to dominate various realms. She actually had such a relationship with him. Yi Qing Luo. Huang Guiyou suddenly shouted at Yi Qing Luo. That sinister face which was covered with a haze suddenly curled up his lips towards Yi Qing Luo. No matter if Gu admits it or not, this seed is your biological father, that is an indisputable fact. Yi Qing Luo's expression turned cold as she looked at Yi Qing Luo. He could use this sinister and strange emphasis to call out the two words, Gu, that he had affectionately called her 10,000 years ago. Feng Gu was indeed so angry because of this form of address and his words. So what if I'm your biological father? Yi Qing Luo's expression on her face, as her voice became colder. She took a step forward, blocking in front of Feng Gu, and also blocking Huang Guiyou's disgusting gaze. Other than snatching the thing that mother left me, other than playing with the hearts of my brothers, other than wanting my life, what other feelings do you have for me? She scoffed lightly, as her eyes were filled with ridicule. Mother is right. What right do you have to lick your face in front of me? You're my father. Her fingertips moved again. The bright silver threads shone brightly, as it entangled Huang Guiyou even tighter. The razor-sharp silver threads pierced into Huang Guiyou's flesh, all the way to his bones. That kind of extreme pain could not be described with words. Regardless of whether what you said is true or false, just based on what you've done, I won't admit it. Yi Qing Luo was very calm, her long and narrow eyes shot out a few rays of light. Even if it is for mother's revenge, I will not let you get what you want. I will not let you have the chance to hurt me and my friends by my side. As she spoke, her tone became heavier and sharper. She tightened her fingers. The black-clothed man in the silver threads didn't even have the chance to scream. Has already dissipated in the river of silver threads vaguely. He seemed to be able to see beads of blood dripping from the silver thread. It's settled? The mastermind of the Dark Shadow Palace was taken care of? The onlookers sucked in a breath of cold air. The interpersonal relationships nowadays were a little complicated. The girl who walked out of the tomb of the Divine Emperor was so cold-blooded and heartless? Some people exclaimed in surprise, while others disagreed. But the crowd's thoughts didn't affect Yi Qing Luo. The current Yi Qing Luo was frowning tightly, as she searched the surroundings vigilantly. Instinct told her. Things absolutely couldn't be settled so quickly. Chapter 5161. The mastermind of the secluded palace was sinister and cunning. Since the start of Nirvana Realm, they had been fighting with her till now. How was it possible that he died so easily? Furthermore, earlier when she used the glower flame fan's silver threads to chop him apart, she didn't feel the feeling of killing Huang Guiyou. Yi Qing Luo's brows drooped slightly as she stared at the glower flame fan on her fingertips, pondering over the peculiarity. It's no use. Feng Ji's weak voice sounded a little strained. That's not Huang Guiyou's real body. Even if he's dismembered, Huang Guiyou is still alive. Mother. Yi Qing Luo kept her thoughts as she looked at Feng Gu worriedly, stretching out her hand to support her. Feng Gu avoided her hand once again as her pale lips curled upwards. That smile was gentle and filled with love towards her. But it was also mixed with helplessness. Yi Qing Luo's heart tightened fiercely. Suddenly she stretched out her hand and held Feng Ji's hand. The moment their skin touched, a wave of ice, like 1,000-year-old frost, pierced into her body. Her entire body was frozen on the spot. That bone-piercing coldness seemed to turn her into an ice sculpture. Very quickly, Feng Gu reacted and swiftly retreated as her tone was filled with worry. Luo, are you all right? She separated from Feng Gu. The coldness that felt like it was going to pierce into his internal organs gradually subsided. But the coldness in her body was unable to dissipate. She staggered a few steps backwards. Luckily Dmo Xian supported her from behind in time. Yi Qing Luo leaned against the man's arms as her pair of charming eyes stared blankly at Feng Gu, who was about to blend into the red glow. Her voice trembled slightly. "Mother, you. What's the matter?" When she asked this question, Yi Qing Luo already had an answer in her heart. No wonder her mother didn't allow her to touch him. Because her mother now. Maintaining her current spiritual form to converse with her was already very taxing. There was no way to maintain her own temperature. Hugging her normally, Yi Qing Luo's heart was like thousands of silver needles, pricking her needle by needle. "Mother is all right." Feng Gu smiled gently and continued, "Mother doesn't have much time left. Listen to me carefully." Yi Qing Luo stopped the choking in her throat as she concentrated her attention on Feng Gu. "Feng Gu, 10,000 years ago, I sensed Huang Guio's ambition. In order to protect you and send you to a brand new world without war, I exhausted my own strength to seal Huang Guio in the demon dragon's lair in the demon domain. I know that I don't have much time left, so when I decided to seal Huang Guio, I set up my grave here. It's not that Huang Guio knew the location of my tomb, so he established the power of the Palace of Darkness here. It's just that Mother wanted to suppress him, and also, to prevent him from discovering my true burial place. The most dangerous place was also the safest place. Even if Huang Guio racked his brains, he would not be able to figure it out. He had been searching for the whereabouts of the Divine Emperor's tomb. It was right in the place where he was sealed. Huang Guio's real body is still sealed under the demon dragon's lair. Earlier Huang Guio was merely an incarnation of a strand of his consciousness. When Feng Gu said this, her eyes revealed some seriousness and solemnity as she looked at Yi Qing Luo. Based on his current strength, I'm guessing his seal is going to be broken soon. Once he breaks the seal and appears, this strange world will probably fall into an abyss of suffering again. She took a deep breath as her gaze gradually turned resolute and revealed some traces of remorse. "Seventh Miss who likes trash, Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh Miss who likes trash, Overlord, please be gentler with your love." Chapter 5162. Mother knows that it's selfish of me to ask you for help now. Feng Gu pursed her pale lips. That weak voice was firm again, but Mother still wants. That year, it was Mother's willful act, indulging in the love created by Huang Guio, and made a huge mistake. And finally used my life to pay for it. Now, I hope you can complete what I failed to do that year, to stop Huang Guio's ambition. If it's possible. I hope you can get rid of all future troubles. When she said the last 4 words, her voice was choked and hoarse. Yi Qing Luo's long eyelashes trembled slightly. Staring at Feng Ji's pale and empty face, he endured the sourness in his heart and nodded hard. Okay. Feng Ji's wish had been achieved. Her face revealed a relaxed and gentle smile. Her gaze was tender, as she stared deeply at Yi Qing Luo's face. The smile on her lips was a little bitter, but full of satisfaction. "Luo, will you blame me?" Yi Qing Luo shook her head. "No. Because I didn't know the right person. You were homeless the moment you were born, without a peaceful life. Because of my obsession, I didn't care about your wishes, to pave all the roads, to let you inherit the divine phoenix legacy, accept the fate of the Feng family. Now, I don't care about your wishes, making use of your feelings for me, hoping you to deal with your biological father." Feng Ji's eyes were filled with tears. "I'm sorry. I'm not a good mother." No one wished for everything to be arranged for them to move forward. Even if it was their own children. Everyone was an independent individual. Parents could give advice and help. But they must never use their own subjective views to arrange their children's future. Feng Gu understood this point. But she had no choice. For the common people, in order to stop the world that was about to face the abyss of suffering because of her, she had to make a choice. 1. A choice that could change the current situation. So, Yi Qing Luo had to bear a heavy fate. "Mother, don't doubt your motherly love for me." Yi Qing Luo stretched out her hand, trying to hold Feng Ji's hand. However, Feng Gu took a step back. Her hand paused in midair. Then looking at Feng Gu, she tightened her fingers bit by bit. He seemed to hold Feng Ji's hand through the air. She pursed her lips and looked at Feng Gu seriously. Everything you've done is not wrong. In fact, I should be thanking you for sacrificing so much for me. This has always been my fate. Even if Mother didn't want me to walk this path, he would still forcefully make a move against me, forcing me to become his tool. You're a very, very good mother. I'm proud to have a mother like you. Yiqing Luo's pink lips slowly rose into a faint arc, clear and moist like water. Luo, Feng Ji's eyes turned even redder as her gaze turned towards the man behind Yiqing Luo, who had been supporting Yiqing Luo's waist with one hand, standing upright. She took a deep breath and calmed herself down. You. Di Zun, she said, her voice a little heavy. Mo Xian's expression was respectful as he nodded slightly. Just call me Mo Xian, mother. When he spat out the last word in an extremely natural manner. Yiqing Luo was stunned for a moment. You're calling me mother, just like that? She wasn't married yet. This man. Really thick-skinned. Yiqing Luo was cursing in her heart, but her face was burning hot. Chapter 5163. Feng Gu was stunned for a moment before she smiled. I believe in your sincerity towards Luo, for the rest of my life. I will entrust this daughter of mine to you. Her smile seemed as though it would dissipate with the wind at any time. Yiqing Luo's heart vaguely felt something. Her fair fingers clenched Nan Rao's arm tightly as she suppressed her emotions. Mo Xian's expression was respectful and serious as he gave a slight bow towards Feng Gu. Mother, don't worry. Love her, protect her, pamper her, love her. This is what I will use my entire life to do. This was probably the first time in Mo Xian's life that he was so respectful towards someone. That piercingly cold aura which belonged to an overlord was completely concealed. Mo Xian was just an ordinary son-in-law. A son-in-law who was being tested by his future mother-in-law. Feng Gu smiled satisfactorily as she nodded. This daughter of mine is much luckier than me. I believe that you will do your best to fulfill the vow you have made. Mo Xian's gaze was resolute. Yes. Sis. Sister. Suddenly, a trembling voice was heard from not too far away. Not too far away, a figure was seen rushing over speedily. That person's robe was in a mess and his head of black hair was blown into a mess by the strong wind. He rushed over and stopped 3 steps away from Feng Gu. His eyes were wide open as he stared at Feng Gu without blinking as he panted heavily. When Feng Gu heard this voice, the smile on her face paused for a moment. Her line of sight fell onto Na Rao bit by bit. That face which was similar to hers was extremely agitated at this moment. Feng Gu smiled slightly. Qiong, you've grown up. She seemed to want to stretch out her hand to caress Feng Li Qiong's head. But thinking of her current physique, she quickly withdrew her hand. Feng Li Qiong's eyes widened as she stared at Feng Gu as her throat tightened uncomfortably. Feng Gu gave her an extremely gentle smile. For so many years, it's all thanks to Qiong for carrying the burden of the Feng family, and also for the sins that sister had committed. She smiled extremely gently. Luckily there's Qiong. You will always be sister's best brother. Feng Li Qiong opened her mouth and spat out a word bitterly. No, he didn't. He was not a good younger brother. Feng Ji's death was a huge blow to him, and all his thoughts were distorted. Actually, he had never blamed his sister. Never blamed her, because of love, regardless of holding. He just wanted to find an excuse to keep himself going. Persevere. I will protect my sister, the hand that my sister wants to protect. But, even so, he had done a lot of wrong things. He didn't have the qualifications to receive his sister's praise. Yes, it's all thanks to uncle that Feng family and grandfather can survive until today. Yiqing Luo's tone was full of sincerity. Uncle, he really worships mother. Feng Ji's smile became even more gentle, and the way she looked at Feng Liqiong also became a little warmer. She seemed to be caressing Feng Liqiong's head through the air. Qiong, from now on, please take care of the Feng family and Luo. You're the eldest son of the Feng family, the pillar of the Feng family. Sis. Feng Liqiong said in a hoarse voice, her eyes welling up with tears. His heart was full of words, but at this moment, he could not say them. A hand was placed on his back. Feng family's patriarch slowly raised his head, looking at this daughter who he had always doted on, loved, but because of a moment of wrong love, had passed away 10,000 years ago. Chapter 51-64. That pair of old eyes which had experienced hardships couldn't help but burst into tears. Father. When she saw Patriarch Feng, the expression on Feng Ji's face couldn't hold it in anymore. She cried softly and then knelt down on the ground. Father. I'm unfilial. Patriarch Feng shut his eyes hard. The once all-powerful old man suppressed the sourness in his eyes and made his voice calm and dignified. Everything is over, don't mention it again. However, his trembling voice still revealed his agitation at this moment. Patriarch Feng looked at the spiritual body which seemed like it would dissipate when the wind blew, and sighed softly. After that, he looked at Yiqing Luo. Luo has already accepted the God Emperor's inheritance? Yes, Luo is the appointed successor to the God Emperor. Feng Ji's gaze gently swept over the obvious cherry blossom totem on Yiqing Luo's forehead, that was the symbol of the God Emperor. Since Yiqing Luo was born, there was this mark on her forehead. This was the appointed future God Emperor. Luo. Patriarch Feng's voice suddenly became dignified, his tone heavy. And that call also spread to the surroundings through the profound energy. The noisy crowd quietened down at this moment. Patriarch Feng continued, you have already received the God Emperor's inheritance, from today onwards. You are the new God Emperor of the God Emperor, you have to shoulder the heavy burden of the God realm, understand? Yiqing Luo knew. This was her grandfather's way of announcing her current status to everyone. The God Emperor of the God Emperor's inheritance. That was the most orthodox God Emperor of the God Emperor. All the people in the God realm must accept the God Emperor of the God Emperor willingly. When this was said, the God realm was in an uproar. Most of the forces in the God realm had been dominated by the Nether Palace. Even if Feng Liqiong had eliminated many hidden forces. But there were still a lot of them left. When this was said, it immediately attracted the resistance of many God realm cultivators. Patriarch Feng sneered and flicked his sleeves, facing the dense crowd in front. His voice was dignified and cold, not convinced? Then. Who among you can get the God Emperor's inheritance and sit firmly on the God Emperor's position? The Emperor of the former Shenhuang has disappeared for tens of thousands of years, and your Feng family created an acting Shenhuang. To put it bluntly, you just want to occupy the position of Shenhuang and refuse to let go. What? Only the person who obtained the Divine Emperor's inheritance can inherit the Divine Emperor's throne? How do we know that she really got the Divine Emperor's inheritance? Countless people clamored. Bang! A majestic profound energy suddenly exploded in the middle of the crowd. The group of people who were still clamoring immediately began to scream. The illusory red spiritual body slowly floated into the air and looked down at the people below. That gentleness towards Yiqing Luo and the Feng family members had vanished. That was the majesty that belonged to the superior, the Emperor of the Divine Emperor. The hurricane blew against her flame-like red robe. Feng Ji's brows were cold, and his words were ruthless. What's wrong with my daughter inheriting the throne? If anyone is dissatisfied, feel free to come and find this emperor. The might of a divine emperor spread throughout the entire Devil Destruction Mountain. The pressure was so great that everyone was almost unable to breathe. Yiqing Luo's heart felt like it was being pricked by needles, and she wanted to go forward to stop Feng Gu. Her slender waist was held tightly by Dmo Xian. He lowered his eyes, and his voice was gentle and tender. She knows she doesn't have much time left. She only wants to use the remaining time to help you, clear the obstacles. Even if you stop her now, it's useless. But, if this goes on, Mother will only exhaust all her energy, and completely disappear from this world. Chapter 5165. The man sighed softly and gently patted the young girl's delicate back, silently comforting her. Yiqing Luo's eyes were red, her slender hands clutched the man's robe tightly as she fought back her tears. She understood. She understood. Her mother was able to meet her in a spiritual form after 10,000 years was all because of her longing for her and her obsession. This was her mother's last time limit. What she hoped for was for her to sit firmly on the throne of the Divine Emperor and control the God realm. So she used her prestige as the former Divine Emperor to oppress everyone in the God realm. After all, she was the legitimate former Divine Emperor. Feng Ji's appearance and her anger made the cultivators in the God realm somewhat fearful. Divine Emperor, how did you? Some of the cultivators present naturally knew Feng Gu. When they saw that the almighty former God monarch, who had once created countless legends in the God world, had actually come back to life in his own tomb, they couldn't help but feel shocked. However, Feng Ji's current spiritual form made everyone unable to guess what was going on. Feng Ji's brows sunk as her gaze swept across the ground indifferently. There are rumors in the outer realm that the secret of the Divine Phoenix's inheritance is hidden in the Divine Emperor's tomb, as well as the divine weapons that I used when I was alive. She raised her hand gently. Her flame-like red sleeves floated like flowing clouds. Sharp profound light was released from Feng Ji's body. It was as if it was going to devour everything in its surroundings. All of you have tried so hard to find this emperor's tomb. Isn't it all for those things? Feng Gu chuckled softly and her tone was cold. So, when you sensed the aura of my tomb, you were able to rush over so quickly, isn't it? Everyone was speechless for a moment. Ever since the Divine Emperor passed away, the legend of the Divine Emperor had been circulating for a long time. But these rumors only made people respectfully praise a few words when mentioning the Feng family or the acting Shen Huang. The turning point happened 16 years ago. Not knowing where it came from, as long as they found the Divine Emperor's tomb and obtained the Divine Phoenix's inheritance and the divine weapon used by the Divine Emperor, he would be able to inherit the Divine Emperor's position and become the next Divine Emperor, the true Emperor of Divine Emperors. After all, no matter how high the status of Feng Liqiong and the Feng family was in the God realm, an acting Divine Emperor was, after all, an acting Divine Emperor. What they wanted more was to become the real, legitimate Divine Emperors. Maps of the Divine Emperor's tomb began to circulate throughout the otherworld. This caused countless people to have all sorts of wild and fanciful thoughts about Dai Cha. The secret at the bottom of her heart was bluntly brought out by Feng Gu, the person involved. Everyone blushed and felt somewhat embarrassed. Feng Ji's brows narrowed slightly as he shot out a sharp and dangerous glare. My daughter. Feng family's eldest sister Feng Qing Luo, she has already completely inherited God Emperor's inheritance, and has also obtained the recognition of the inheritance as the designated successor to God Emperor. Then, she should be the rightful Empress of Divine Emperors. Feng Ji's words smashed down forcefully. The hearts of the crowd also felt as if they had been ruthlessly cut by a knife. At the same time, Patriarch Feng and Dmo Xian exchanged glances and immediately pushed Yiqing Luo towards Feng Ji's direction lightly. The young lady stood beside Feng Gu. Two faces that were 70% similar looked at each other. Feng Gu smiled sweetly at Yiqing Luo and asked in a warm voice, nervous? Chapter 5166. Feng Ji's beautiful eyes were filled with gentleness and encouragement. Yiqing Luo's curly long eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings. Their eyes met for a moment and her pink lips curled into a faint smile. With mother around, I'm not afraid of anything. She knew clearly what her grandfather and Xian meant. Her mother was already standing in front, creating a momentum for her. She would have to depend on herself for the rest, if she wanted to help her mother to manage the God realm properly. This step was the first step that she had to take personally. The expression on her face was more calm and composed. Her long and narrow eyes were filled with laziness and casualness. His casual attitude and the smile at the corner of his lips carried a profound meaning. It made the young lady feel even more mysterious. Yi Qing Luo faced the crowd, her peach-red dress fluttered. I am Feng family's eldest sister Feng Qing Luo, and also the acknowledged successor of the God Emperor's inheritance. She raised her hand and her slender fingers brushed past her exquisite and alluring face. The cherry blossom totem in front of his forehead shone with a dazzling light. Her fingers squatted on the totem on her forehead as she pointed lightly, no matter whether you accept it or not, my God Emperor's imprint is the best proof. I am the successor of the God Emperor, your current God Emperor. She raised her chin slightly as the devouring flame fan in her hands lightly tapped. At the same time. Roar, clang, howl, hiss, a few deafening beast roars reverberated through the entire sky. The crowd had yet to regain their senses from the deafening roar which was like a beating drum. The sky suddenly turned black. Following that, a dazzling green light covered the entire sky. Howl, the majestic dragon roar caused the entire Devil Destruction Mountain to quake. The crowd raised their heads in shock. They saw a huge green dragon hovering beside them. The dragon's body was huge as it covered the sky. Pieces of dragon scales were like solid armor, sparkling brightly. Dragon? Green dragon? The surrounding crowd looked in disbelief at the sudden appearance of the azure dragon. They naturally recognized it. Wasn't this one of the 4 sacred beasts that the former God Emperor had a contract with, the green dragon sacred beast? Remember. After the death of the former divine emperor, how many people were fighting to find the 4 great sacred beasts and form a contract with the one and only sacred beasts in this world? However, the 4 sacred beasts seemed to have disappeared from the world along with the former divine emperor. As time went by, people began to forget about these 4 holy beasts, who had once fought alongside the former divine emperor, and were his greatest helpers. He only treated it as a biography within a biography. Unexpectedly, the former divine emperor had been resurrected from the grave. The azure dragon also appeared. Did the former emperor of the divine emperor summon azure dragon to cheer up his daughter? Look at the azure dragon's back. Suddenly, someone with sharp eyes saw that there was a dragon wrapped around the back of the azure dragon. The color of the dragon's scales was extremely complicated, like a leopard's pattern. At this moment, it was shaking its head and looking at them with a pair of cute, watery, and innocent dragon eyes. That was the son of the green dragon? Just as everyone was looking at the azure dragon in shock, suddenly, a shrill bird cry rang out. Following that, everyone felt the surrounding air become scorching hot as if it was on fire. The sky that was enveloped by the green light was covered with a red glow. It was as if the sky was on fire. In the next instant, everyone saw that from the gap where the azure dragon was circling, a fiery red vermilion bird that was even more noble and elegant than the phoenix emerged. Chapter 5167. The phoenix feathers that overflowed with multicolored light seemed as if they were plated with a layer of multicolored light, and they glistened brilliantly. Everywhere it went, its beautiful tail would draw a beautiful arc. It was extremely dazzling. So dazzling that everyone's eyes were almost blinded. One of the 4 sacred beasts, the vermilion bird. That was the vermilion bird. Everyone was excited. The appearance of an azure dragon had already shocked them. Unexpectedly, even the vermilion bird appeared. The appearance of the former divine emperor had even summoned an ancient sacred beast to cheer for his daughter. Dong, just as everyone was staring greedily at the azure dragon and the vermilion bird, wishing they could rush forward and contract the 2 sacred beasts. Suddenly, a heavy object landed on the ground, smashing heavily on the ground. The entire Devil Destruction Mountain quaked. Everyone felt that even the ground beneath their feet was about to split open in the next instant. That voice startled everyone and they hurriedly looked towards the source of the voice. They saw, in the vast empty space where the azure dragon and the vermilion bird were circling, a humongous creature slowly climbed up. It was like a towering mountain, extremely hard, and gave off a series of bone-chilling hissing sounds. That is, the black tortoise? Someone recognized the humongous creature and exclaimed in shock. The black tortoise. It could be said to be the most mysterious existence among the four sacred beasts. The black tortoise was mysterious not because it could appear and disappear unpredictably. It was because the black tortoise was simply indestructible. Everyone had heard of the rumors regarding the black tortoise. The black tortoise squatted on the battlefield. Basically, there was no suspense. Because no one could break the black tortoise's protection. The most important point was, the black tortoise was very lazy. It was so lazy that it could not even move. It was so lazy that among the four sacred beasts, the black tortoise was the least. And now, the black tortoise was summoned just like that. The former divine emperor was determined to cheer for his daughter. With the suppression of the sacred beasts, most of the profound practitioners in the divine world would quieten down. They had to. The former divine emperor doted on his daughter too much, who was the new divine emperor who had inherited the legacy of the former divine emperor. Everyone looked at the three humongous sacred beasts and swallowed hard. The former divine emperor. Suddenly, someone in the crowd spoke. Everyone looked over. It was the patriarch of the Jiang clan of the divine world. At this moment, he was looking at Feng Gu with a cold smile. The Jiang nobles were now working directly with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. There were instructions from the Abyss Palace. In addition, the relationship between the Jiang nobles and the Palace of Gloomy Shadows had been exposed. The Jiang family's patriarch naturally wouldn't allow Feng Gu to set the pace and let everyone accept Yi Qing Luo's existence as the new sovereign of gods. He used his profound energy to amplify his voice to every corner of Devil Destruction Mountain. Your Feng family has been in power in the divine realm for many years. Even after the death of the former divine emperor, you didn't intend to hand over the position of divine emperor. You even let the heir of your Feng family become the acting divine emperor. What? Only those who receive the divine emperor's inheritance can become the divine emperor. Then, the acting divine emperor doesn't seem to be the one recognized by the divine emperor's inheritance, right? However, he has been in control of the god realm for such a long time. Now, another, daughter of the former Shenhuang emperor will become the new Shenhuang emperor. Your Feng family's ambition is really big. Patriarch Zhang's words weren't very clear, but it expressed a lot of meaning. Feng family's ambition was broad and they were bent on controlling the divine realm. Their motive was absolutely not simple. Chapter 5168. And the last sentence, withdraw the daughter of a former divine emperor. This sentence could completely trigger countless guesses from the crowd. Could it be that this former divine emperor's daughter was a fake? All of this was Feng family's scheme? Just to become the emperor of the divine emperors justifiably? If that was the case, then Feng family's table manners were too disgusting. Former divine emperor's daughter, even if you summoned the four sacred beasts to support her, it's still not enough to convince us. A woman who appeared out of nowhere, what right does she have to take charge of the divine realm? After Patriarch Jiang let everyone fantasize for a while, he opened his mouth again. If I'm not wrong, this young lady doesn't seem to be from the divine realm, but someone from the lower realm. His gaze pointed directly at Feng Liqiong. It seems, the acting divine emperor used his divine emperor's name to bring her to the divine realm privately, right? After Patriarch Jiang said this, not only the divine realm was in an uproar. Even the people from the devil's domain were shocked. Not someone from the divine realm, but someone from the lower realm? Those lowly cultivators from the lower realm, how could they be qualified to come to the divine realm and even dream of becoming the divine emperor? If this was spread out, the divine realm would probably become a joke. Patriarch Jiang was very satisfied to see the impact of his words on the crowd. His sinister eyes narrowed slightly, his lips hooked up with a sneer, and continued to drive the crowd's emotions. Patriarch Feng, we respect your Feng family for possessing the inheritance of the divine phoenix, and have always allowed your Feng family to do whatever you want in the divine realm. Now, you actually found a young lady from the lower realm, to let her inherit the divine emperor's position. Have you ever thought about whether we are willing? Patriarch Feng's face immediately darkened, as he stared fiercely at Patriarch Jiang. Patriarch Feng couldn't refute Patriarch Zhang's point at all. Yiqing Luo was indeed someone from the lower realm. Before this, Yiqing Luo indeed did not have the qualifications to stand on the divine realm's territory. Whether Yiqing Luo really inherited the divine emperor's legacy or not, she was someone from the lower realm. This point. It was unacceptable. The Jiang family's aristocratic family's plan was brilliant. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes slanted as her gaze swept across the Jiang family's aristocrats. It seemed that the head of the Jiang family had also gotten some information about her from the Palace of Darkness. He was making use of the fact that she was from the lower world as a point of attack. It really was, no one could refute that. Yiqing Luo caressed the stray hairs by the side of her face as she took large strides towards the direction of the three sacred beasts. Her steps were light and slow, neither too fast nor too slow. As her dress fluttered in the wind, it was like a blossoming peach blossom, absolutely stunning. The nobleman of the Jiang clan snorted coldly, "Big Sister Feng, you're from the lower realm. Appearing in the immortal realm is already the most lenient thing you can do. Yet, you still want to become the emperor of the divine emperors? Don't think that you can hide the fact that you are from the lower realm just by borrowing the sacred beast of the former divine emperor. Those saint beasts are not something that a person from a lower realm like you can approach." Sacred beasts were arrogant by nature. Apart from contractors, he basically didn't like anyone else. Even the contestants' relatives were the same. Some of the people present had heard that 10,000 years ago, that was when the four great sacred beasts were still around. Even if it was Patriarch Feng or Feng Liqiong, the sacred beasts might not give them a good look. This lowly person from the lower realm. How dare she get close to the four great sacred beasts? She really wanted to make use of the sacred beasts to stabilize her position as the divine emperor. She must be crazy. Chapter 5169. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about him. She didn't even cast a glance at Patriarch Zhang's direction. That obvious attitude of not putting him in her eyes made Patriarch Zhang's expression sunk. He sneered as he continued to ridicule, "Former Emperor of God, you'd better keep your sacred beast back. If your daughter who came from the lower realm, you'll feel heartache. After all, the cultivators from the lower realm are lowly and lowly. If she were to be shocked by the sacred beast's might, this daughter of yours who had finally returned to your side would be gone." Patriarch Zhang's words seemed to be reminding Feng Gu. However, the sarcasm in his tone and words was extremely obvious. Feng Gu didn't bother about Patriarch Zhang's intention as her gaze followed Yiqing Luo's direction towards the sacred beast. Her gaze followed closely without blinking, as though she was worried about Yiqing Luo. When Patriarch Zhang saw that, he assumed that Feng Gu had listened to his words as he smiled even more complacently. "Former Emperor of God, now isn't the time to show off. You'd better summon the sacred beast back. Who told you that the sacred beast is this empress's battle pet?" Feng Gu seemed to be annoyed by the commotion as her exquisite beautiful eyes creased slightly as she shot an impatient glance at Patriarch Zhang. Patriarch Zhang went into a blank as he didn't quite understand the meaning of Feng Ji's words. Feng Ji's red lips curved as she gave a sarcastic and proud smile. "Patriarch Zhang, this empress has already passed away 10,000 years ago, and before that, this empress had already terminated the contract with the four sacred beasts." The meaning of her words. She and the sacred beasts had nothing to do with each other. Those sacred beasts' arrival wasn't summoned by her. It had nothing to do with Feng Gu. Where did those sacred beasts come from? Patriarch Zhang was stunned for a moment as he quickly regained his senses as he looked towards the direction where the sacred beasts were heading. Suddenly, a gloomy ridicule flashed past his eyes as he suddenly opened his mouth. "Former Emperor of God, since the four sacred beasts had already terminated the contract with you, then you still allow Sister Feng to get close to the sacred beasts? Sacred beasts' temperament is unpredictable and Sister Feng is already in danger when she gets close to them. Not to mention that these sacred beasts have nothing to do with former Emperor of God. I'm afraid Sister Feng doesn't even know about this. Is this the so-called, lifting a rock only to smash one's own foot? Initially, I wanted to make use of the holy beast's might to build momentum, but now, I even have to pay with my life. Ha ha ha. Jiang clan head's tone was full of sarcasm. At this moment, Yiqing Luo was getting closer and closer to the three sacred beasts. It was so close that as long as the three holy beasts raised their heads slightly and breathed out, he could probably throw her to the ground. Yiqing Luo had no way to advance, no way to retreat, only death awaited her. Clan Lord Jiang was filled with such thoughts. Suddenly, a tyrannical and ferocious beast roar shook the entire Devil Destruction Mountain. It was the roar of a beast. It caused one's eardrums to expand and one's chest to tremble. Pa! Everyone saw a snow-white, huge tiger lying horizontally in front of Yiqing Luo. That white tiger was huge. Yiqing Luo stood in front of the white tiger. It was only as tall as the white tiger's claws. The white tiger, sacred beast of the four great sacred beasts. Everyone exclaimed in surprise. The four sacred beasts were all gathered here. They could actually see the four great sacred beasts alive. This was practically a lifetime series. Awe! Everyone went crazy as they kept on exclaiming in admiration. All of them stared greedily at the four great sacred beasts. They couldn't wait to contract these four sacred beasts and become their own battle pets. Chapter 5170. They had clearly heard Patriarch Zhang's words just now. 10,000 years ago. These four unique sacred beasts had already terminated the contract with the former Emperor God. This also meant that everyone present had the opportunity to form a contract with the four great sacred beasts. They didn't request to be like the former Emperor God, to contract all four sacred beasts. They only wanted one. As long as it was just one, he would be willing. The crowd's attention was all on the four sacred beasts. And those forces led by the Jiang family's aristocrats were also looking at the sacred beasts excitedly. But the reason why they were excited wasn't because they could contract the four sacred beasts, but because Yiqing Luo couldn't live on any longer. Patriarch Jiang couldn't help but burst out laughing. Laughing at Yiqing Luo's stupidity. That elder sister Feng was extremely stupid. In order to borrow the sacred beast's might to build momentum, she took the initiative to get close to the sacred beasts. Now, the white tiger sacred beast had appeared. That elder sister Feng had been completely surrounded by the four sacred beasts. Based on the four sacred beasts' unyielding character, Feng Qing Luo couldn't escape death. Patriarch Jiang was filled with this thought as he scrutinized, and even the ridiculing words had flashed past his mind. But let Patriarch Jiang know, it was a scene which made everyone shocked and dumbstruck. It appeared. That huge white tiger sacred beast which was lying horizontally in front of Yiqing Luo didn't raise its tiger claws to slash Yiqing Luo into two halves like what everyone had guessed. Instead, it slowly lowered its sacred beast's prestige towards Yiqing Luo's direction. It automatically sent its furry head into Yiqing Luo's hand. That intimate gesture. Anyone could see that. This wasn't the end. The more exciting scene was still ongoing. That azure dragon sacred beast which was hovering in the sky slowly lowered its body. The vermilion bird sacred beast which was flying around arrogantly in the sky flaunted its beautiful phoenix feathers as it flew towards Yiqing Luo. Even that black tortoise sacred beast which was too lazy to move also rolled its hard outer shell as it got closer to Yiqing Luo. Then, four completely different but equally dignified voices rang out, "Master." They called out in unison, shaking everyone's heart. Everyone was stunned for a moment. Following that, he gasped in disbelief. Wait a minute, were they seeing things? Then, the legendary and invincible four great sacred beasts had actually called him a master? Where was his dignity and pride as a sacred beast? No, that's not right. That's not the point. The main point was, the direction that the four sacred beasts were facing, was Feng family's eldest sister, that Feng Qing Luo who was rumored to have inherited God Emperor's inheritance. The four sacred beasts actually let her, form a contract with them? As soon as this news came out, everyone was boiling with excitement. How could he believe it? Everyone was so greedy that the 4 great saint beasts, which would be a cause for celebration, actually submitted to a girl. Back then, even Feng Gu might not have been able to be addressed as master. They could not understand why the 4 great sacred beasts would form a contract with a girl. No one would doubt the authenticity of the contract between Yi Qing Luo and the sacred beast. Because of the pride of a holy beast, it was impossible for him to cooperate with Yi Qing Luo's act just because of Feng Ji's instruction. Therefore, that lowly young lady who came from a low-leveled plane, she had really formed a contract with 4 great saint beasts. Chapter 5171. Those 4 sacred beasts surrounded the young lady with an intimate and harmonious look. It was like a heavy slap on Jiang family's patriarch's face. This was a complete slap on his face. Perhaps no one in the crowd had expected this. The rumored 4 great sacred beasts were contracted by a young lady from the lower realm. Facing everyone's shocked and complicated gazes, Yi Qing Luo totally didn't pay any attention to it. Her vision was fixed on these few companions in front of her. Her long and narrow eyes were slightly curved as it gave a gentle arc. She stretched out her hand and touched the 4 companions as the smile on her pink lips deepened. You're finally out. Ever since they came to the Devil region, she couldn't sense the presence of the pet space. To these few adorable beasts, she missed them very much. Chi-Chi's huge head rubbed against Yi Qing Luo. One head had already covered the young lady. The huge creature's voice was very soft. Master, Chi-Chi missed you so much, you stinky tiger, hurry up and get out of the way. Let me see if Master has become ugly again. This arrogant voice was obviously Qi Yan. Is Master all right? This gentle young man's voice was obviously Black Tortoise Xian Gui. I didn't expect, you lass, to inherit the God Emperor's power. This steady voice was obviously Azure Dragon. The Azure Dragon's whiskers fluttered as it lamented, we were suddenly sealed in the pet dimension. We couldn't leave, and we couldn't get in touch with you. Just now, a sudden surge of energy broke the barrier between us, and we were able to come out of the pet dimension. Azure Dragon's huge eyes had already seen the surrounding environment and immediately understood what had happened. And it was precisely because of this. Earlier after they appeared, it was to create momentum for their own master. The sacred beast's might was majestic and sharp, as well as a huge pressure, oppressing the crowd's nerves. Yi Qing Luo flipped over and leapt onto Chi-Chi's back. On the huge white tiger, there was a scorching flame which was extremely obvious. After that, Chi-Chi started to move and walked back towards the direction where Feng family's patriarch and the rest were. As for the other 3 sacred beasts, they were like the most loyal guardians, firmly following behind Chi-Chi, who was also Yi Qing Luo's back. That imposing manner was like a rainbow. That mighty and domineering. This scene was reflected in everyone's eyes. He would probably not be able to forget this scene for the next few decades. All the way back to Feng clan master's side. The originally magnificent cemetery that had now collapsed into ruins was the center of it all. It was as if he was covered in frost, and the cold and tent spread out in all directions. Yi Qing Luo sat leisurely on the back of the white tiger, her eyes were calm, but there was a sense of foreboding chill. The appearance of the 4 great saint beasts. It was exactly what she needed right now. She must do it before her mother loses all of her strength. Fulfill Niangqin's expectations. The imposing manner between Yi Qing Luo's brows grew stronger and stronger. A voice as cold as ice rang out from all directions. If I'm not qualified to inherit the throne of the Divine Emperor, then, who is? The girl's long and narrow eyes were filled with a mocking smile. Even though they were far away, she could still accurately fix her gaze on the Jiang clan's patriarch. She sneered, you? Without waiting for Patriarch Jiang to respond. Yi Qing Luo indifferently sneered and ridiculed, but on what basis? You and my Feng family have been in charge of the God realm for so many years, that's because we have this qualification. And the reason why I can inherit the throne of the Divine Emperor is because of the Feng family's blood flowing in my body, so I can obtain the recognition of the Divine Emperor's inheritance. Chapter 5172. When Yiqing Luo reached this point, she paused slightly. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, adding a sense of mockery and mockery. She tilted her head and fixed her teasing eyes on Patriarch Jiang. She said sarcastically, "If Patriarch Jiang really wanted to be a divine emperor, why didn't you try to get the inheritance of a divine emperor after so many years?" Jiang family master's face was livid with anger. "Isn't this because of your Feng family's selfishness? He hid the inheritance of the divine emperor in the tomb of the former divine emperor. How can we get the inheritance of the divine emperor?" Yiqing Luo clicked her tongue, spread out her hands and sighed helplessly. "So, it's because you don't have the ability. You." The head of the Jiang clan was exasperated. Yiqing Luo interrupted again. "The divine emperor's inheritance is controlled by our Feng family. This is our strength, our qualification, and you, Jiang family, and even other aristocrats, can't get the qualification of the divine emperor's inheritance, nor can you find the whereabouts of the divine emperor's inheritance. That is your incompetence. All of you are weak and incompetent. Why should I be the scapegoat?" Yiqing Luo's sentence after sentence was totally stabbing a knife into Patriarch Jiang's heart. Following that, Yiqing Luo slowly stood up on Chi-Chi's back. The young girl in a pink dress on the back of the huge white tiger was very eye-catching. The aura that the young girl released bit by bit overlapped with the might of the holy beast. The atmosphere of the entire Devil Destruction Mountain had sunk into a strange and stagnant atmosphere that made it difficult for people to breathe. "I found the Divine Emperor's tomb, obtained the Divine Emperor's inheritance, and inherited the Divine Emperor's inheritance." The girl enunciated each word clearly. "This is my qualification." Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly. A sharp cold light swept across everyone. "Do you still have any objections?" These simple words came out of his mouth. The girl's tone was also extremely casual. However, it caused everyone to feel an indescribable fear in their hearts. Especially, just a few breaths after the young girl finished speaking, the four saint beasts began to move. He growled at them in warning. The warning was too obvious. The Devil Destruction Mountain quietened down. How could anyone dare to object? There was no way he could refute Yiqing Luo's words. "It doesn't matter what you think, and it doesn't matter whether you are willing or not. My Feng family will be a phoenix for 10,000 years. From today onwards. I, Feng family's descendant Feng Qing Luo. It's the new divine phoenix of the God realm." The girl's words were unquestionable. It was very intimidating. The people from the divine world simply had no room to refute. After intimidating that group of people, Yiqing Luo had no intention to waste any more time. With a wave of his hand, he dismissed the onlookers. The people surrounding them naturally refused to leave. Even if he could not obtain the inheritance of the divine emperor, even if he could not contract a sacred beast. At the very least, I can enter the tomb of the divine emperor and get some divine artifacts, right? It should be noted that this was a divine artifact that had been placed in the tomb of the divine emperor for tens of thousands of years. Any one of them could set off a gust of wind. However, the four sacred beasts unleashed their might at the same time. All kinds of crazily chasing people away. In the end, it was completely dispersed. Devil Destruction Mountain quietened down. Yiqing Luo looked at the tomb which had already turned into ruins, and finally her gaze fell onto the increasingly transparent and weak Feng Gu. Her throat tightened as she called out hoarsely, "Mother." Feng Gu gave a gentle smile as her eyes were filled with joy and encouragement towards Yiqing Luo. "You've done very well, to entrust the God realm and the Feng family to you. I'm very assured. New divine phoenix, you'll always be, the best existence in Mother's heart." Chapter 5173. Yiqing Luo's eyes were red and her breathing was getting heavier, as though something was blocking her heart. Feng Gu shook her head gently. Don't cry, to be able to see you again, I'm already very content. After that, her gaze went past Yi Qing Luo and looked towards a certain direction behind her. Her smile was even gentler, with a tinge of joy. You're here. Yi Qing Luo was stunned as a figure flashed past her mind. She turned her head and indeed saw Blood-Bone Barbaric King. Why was Uncle Bone here at Devil Destruction Mountain? Wasn't he escorting those two people who had disguised themselves as her and Dmo Xian? Blood-Bone Barbaric King's gaze was fixed on Feng Gu without blinking. The emotions in his eyes were extremely complicated, making one unable to tell what he was thinking. Until Blood-Bone Barbaric King stopped in front of Feng Gu. One person and one spirit, 4 eyes met. Feng Ji's brows softened as her lips curled into a sweet smile. Ah Gu, it's been hard on you for so long. Blood-Bone Barbaric King didn't say a word as his fingers clenched tightly, his entire body tensed up. Feng Gu seemed to have guessed Blood-Bone Barbaric King's reaction as she smiled gently. If it wasn't for you, I really don't know what to do. Her eyes drooped and the gentleness in her brows made her exquisite and stunning face look extremely gentle. To be able to see you again, I'm very happy. Blood-Bone Barbaric King looked at her without blinking. Their eyes were filled with surging waves that were crazily surging. The lady's sweet smile was reflected in Blood-Bone Barbaric King's pupils. After some time, Blood-Bone Barbaric King then spoke in a hoarse voice, regret? These 3 words seemed to have used up all his strength. Feng Gu raised her eyes. Her brows were gentle as she gazed at Blood-Bone Barbaric King's handsome face, smiling with some joy and relief. She nodded her head very lightly and said clearly, regret. Blood-Bone Barbaric King's pupils shrank abruptly. Feng Ji's smile became even more gentle as she stretched out that slightly transparent hand, stretching out towards Blood-Bone Barbaric King across the void. Following that, it tightened bit by bit. It was as if he wanted to hold the barbaric Blood-Bone King's hand. After Feng Gu finished this action, she chuckled. If the person I chose was you, how good would that be? Her words were soft. However, his words were clearly heard by the barbaric Blood-Bone King. The barbaric Blood-Bone King's heart skipped a beat. His heart skipped a few beats. This was his first time hearing Feng Ji's positive answer. Their feelings for each other deepened. 10,000 years of waiting. Can say this sentence. He was already satisfied. The barbaric Blood-Bone King slowly stretched out his hand, wanting to hold Feng Ji's hand. But Feng Gu had already withdrawn his hand. She gave him an extremely beautiful smile. After that, she looked at Yi Qing Luo again. Luo, you're luckier than me and smarter than me. Mother knows that he will take good care of you. Her voice grew weaker and weaker. His gaze then looked towards Dmo Xian. My daughter and the Feng family, I'll leave it to you. Mother. Yi Qing Luo's heart tightened as she realized something. Dmo Xian's gaze was firm, neither servile nor overbearing. Yes, I will. Feng Gu exchanged a few more words with Patriarch Feng and Feng Liqiong. Finally, his sight fell onto the barbaric Blood-Bone King. The barbaric Blood-Bone King's hand had been stretched towards her. His hand was trembling visibly. His thin lips trembled as he said word by word, I will protect the people you care about, and the family. Feng Gu suddenly burst into laughter. Chapter 5174. That light laughter rippled in the wind. And it even had an echo. In the laughter, there was some relief and lightness. You have always understood me, able to guess all the thoughts in my heart. Feng Gu raised her hand and slowly pressed it on her chest. The smile on her brows became gentler. I am sincere. Perhaps, she was indeed very selfish. In the eyes of the Blood-Bone Savage King. At this critical juncture, she gave him a response. A memory which was enough to make him laugh secretly for the rest of his life. It was hope, he was able to protect Yi Qing Luo and take care of the Feng family. But when she said those words, it was not because of this motive. She was sincere. Sincere regret. Sincerely, felt that if the person she had fallen in love with was Ah Gu, all these would not have happened. She would come out. Only hope, she and Ah Gu's relationship did not have any more regrets. Ah Gu had been waiting for her, from 10,000 years ago, 10,000 years later. His heart had never changed. And absolutely would not be moved by any other woman. So, she was willing to selfishly say these words which would bring endless shock to Ah Gu, and perhaps it might cause Ah Gu to not see any other woman in the future, came out. The blood-boned savage king's pupils constricted suddenly. He looked at Feng Gu in disbelief, watching her actions. Ecstasy gushed up his heart. He suddenly pounced towards Feng Gu, trying to hold her hand. Is what you said true? You really? But, before his hand touched Feng Gu. That sweet and gentle smile, with a satisfied smile on her face. Bit by bit, dissipated in the air. Not a single remnant shadow could be seen. The wind brought the gentle and loving voice of the woman, word by word, was clearly enunciated into everyone's ears. I will use another way, to accompany by your side, I will always be here. The blood-boned savage king's ecstasy fell heavily at this moment. He stretched out his hand again, grabbing the air, Gu-er. But, there was no response from that gentle voice. Feng Gu had completely disappeared. Her obsession had been exhausted. The blood-boned savage king knelt heavily on the rain, his eyes were lifeless as he supported himself on the ground. His face was filled with disappointment and shock. Mother. Yi Qing Luo clenched her fists and buried her head in Dmo Xian's arms. Lin Mo Xian's clothes were soaked in tears. Dmo Xian gently patted her back, silently comforting her. Feng clan master slowly turned his back, and tears flowed down his face. As for Feng Liqiong, she was bawling like a child. The group of people calmed down. No one mentioned anything about Feng Gu anymore. Yi Qing Luo had no intention to leave Devil Extermination Mountain. After she led everyone down the mountain, she asked the demonic hall to send people to set up a few tents at the foot of the mountain as a place to rest. The demonic hall did not agree at first. She didn't expect, the seemingly powerless Mu Yu, who only knew a little about medicine, was actually the daughter of the previous divine emperor, the current divine phoenix. And that seemingly harmless and well-behaved man with azure eyes was the real overlord. Wasn't he just messing with her? It was no wonder that at the wedding in Devil Head City, they could make the nine-tailed fox, the venerable sovereign's great mercy holy beast, so obedient. But, if she rejected? When the overlord's icy cold gaze swept past them, they were all stuck in their throats. The demonic hall sent people over to set up the tents. She stood in front of Yi Qing Luo. Her cold and elegant face was obviously unhappy. The new divine phoenix wouldn't have forgotten what she had promised me, right? Chapter 5175. Yi Qing Luo raised her gaze slightly. She, who had already inherited the divine emperor's legacy, exuded an oppressive aura that no one could look at directly. She gathered her sleeves and looked at the cold face of the Devil Hall. She raised her eyes and said lightly, "Of course I won't forget." Devil Palace stared at Yi Qing Luo and sized her up for a while as her beautiful eyes slowly narrowed. Why did you disguise yourself as another identity to come to the Devil region? She still couldn't figure it out. As the eldest sister of the Feng family in the God realm, why did she need to hide her identity? He then thought about what she had done in the demonic domain. The demon hall had no choice but to think further. If this Feng Qing Luo was sent by the God realm to invade the devil domain, then if she cooperated with Feng Qing Luo, wouldn't she be helping Feng Qing Luo completely? The demon hall was filled with doubts. But the biggest reason was, in fact, she knew it herself. It came from new roused jealousy. Especially when she had almost married the overlord in front of Feng Qing Luo. Even if that Di Zun was a fake. Standing in front of the future mistress of the imperial palace whom the overlord had acknowledged, Feng Qing Luo. She always had a kind of the embarrassment of being so lowly to the point of dust. Yi Qing Luo gently caressed Chi Chi, who had turned into a cat, in her arms as her gaze was calm. You don't have to worry, I'm not interested in the devil region. She was very straightforward and had no intention of beating around the bush. I came to the demon domain purely to see my mother. You should also understand that the gloomy palace is eyeing my mother's tomb covetously. They want to get the location of the godly emperor's tomb from me. If I don't change my appearance, do you think I can inherit the throne so smoothly? Yi Qing Luo's counter-question made the devil palace speechless. The demon hall and gloomy palace were working together. Naturally, he understood the style of the abyss palace. With the way shady palace did things behind the scenes, she would definitely snatch the opportunity before Feng Qing Luo to barge into the god emperor's tomb, turning the god emperor's tomb upside down. The demon hall was silent for a moment. How do you plan to deal with the palace of gloomy darkness now? Yi Qing Luo had no intention to hide it. The seal behind the secluded palace is at Devil Extermination Mountain. As for the exact location, after I find out, I will personally settle this 10,000-year-old grudge. There was no need for her to hide anything. Everything the Devil Hall did was for the sake of the Devil region, for their own ambitions. Right now, on one side was the Dark Palace, which had already been defeated once and was obviously up to no good. The ambition and pride of the Demon Hall would never allow itself to be used by others. On the other hand, it was the new Divine Phoenix who had already inherited the Divine Emperor's inheritance. It represented the entire God realm. There was no need for the Demon Hall to worry that she would take this opportunity to attack the demon domain. After all, she had just taken office, and she needed her face. I can't do such a shameless thing to ruin the reputation of the Feng family. The cold and beautiful eyes of the demon queen flickered with a faint light. After a while, she opened her mouth and said coldly, then, I will wait quietly for the new Divine Phoenix's good news. I hope that you will remember our agreement. After that, the Devil Hall didn't say anything else. He turned around and left. Yi Qing Luo looked at the departing silhouette of the Devil Hall as her pink lips curled into an undetectable arc. This Devil Hall most probably wasn't as clean as it appeared on the surface. However, as long as it was at this critical juncture. If she didn't stir up any trouble. During this period of time in the Devil region, Yi Qing Luo still wanted to maintain a superficial relationship. Chapter 5176. At least it was more convenient for many things. Yi Qing Luo retracted her gaze and looked at the surrounding people who were still setting up their tents. She then walked towards the other corner of Devil Destruction Mountain, a more secluded place. But it wasn't too far away from the tents. She intended to stay in Devil Destruction Mountain. To wait for the person behind the scenes of the Palace of Darkness, Huang Guio's seal. If she could reseal Huang Guio before his seal was lifted, or take the opportunity to eliminate him, then everyone would be happy. But before this, Yi Qing Luo had persuaded Patriarch Feng to return. After all, there was still Feng Shi's friend in the Feng family. If the Palace of Darkness took the opportunity to play some despicable tricks, her weakness would be pinched. Patriarch Feng thought of Feng Shi and the hostage of the Palace of Darkness, Princess Ling Long. He endured the pain of losing Feng Gu and his worry for Yi Qing Luo as he left the Devil region. But Feng Liqiong refused to leave no matter what. He knew what Feng Ji's wish was. So he wanted to stay and help Yi Qing Luo to fulfill Feng Ji's wish. Yi Qing Luo knew that Feng Liqiong was repenting, feeling ashamed that her obsession with Feng Gu had distorted her thinking and caused her to do so many wrong things. Yi Qing Luo didn't stop her. But because Feng Gu had completely disappeared from this world, Feng Liqiong couldn't control her emotions at all, so she went off alone to ease her grief. So did Barbaric Blood King. As for Dmo Xian, he summoned the disciples of Dragon Scale Palace and started to search around Devil Destruction Mountain for the real place where Huang Guio was sealed. Which meant, now, other than the guards who were setting up the tents, there was only Yi Qing Luo alone. when Yiqing Luo walked to a secluded corner. She flipped over and climbed up a big tree. Her back leaned against the tree trunk as she bent one knee and placed one hand on it. His other leg was dangling leisurely, swinging back and forth. Her slender fingers lightly tapped on the tree trunk twice as she spoke in a casual tone. How long do you intend to follow me secretly? Haven't you enjoyed the show? The young lady's voice was slightly hoarse, but it was full of majesty. A figure suddenly appeared. With a lightning speed, it appeared in front of Yiqing Luo in a blink of an eye. The thick and solid tree trunk carried the weight of two people. And because of this sudden weight, it kept swaying. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as her voice became heavier. Men and women should not touch each other. Step down. That figure was still crouching in front of her. A pair of eyes that seemed to be filled with bloodlust and slaughter, at this moment, had an inexplicable and cold smile that was filled with killing intent. He stared at her without blinking. Yiqing Luo's hair stood on end from his stare as she raised her hand and gave a tight slap to the face in front of her. Before he could slap the other party's face, her wrist was held by someone. The icy cold touch made Yiqing Luo couldn't help but shiver. Damned girl, you dare to play tricks on me. The man's voice was low and cold, and it sounded like he was gnashing his teeth. Yiqing Luo struggled against his hand. I can't stand the yin qi on your body, let go and get down. The man frowned and tightened his grip on the girl's wrist. That icy cold bloodthirsty gaze was fixated on Yiqing Luo for several breaths. Suddenly his sleeves fluttered as he landed under the tree. Yiqing Luo turned her head and looked at him from this angle. Lord Demon Dragon, the deal between us has already ended. Why are you still looking for me? Yes. The black-robed man in front of him was like an Azura from hell. He was the Demon Dragon King, Long Ao. Chapter 5177. Long Ao's entire body was gloomy, and his entire body was filled with bloody killing intent. It did look quite scary. Yiqing Luo totally didn't dare to guess what he had done to harm Li before he was sealed, which made him look so gloomy. Obviously, he was just a hot-tempered fool who would resort to violence at the slightest disagreement. However, he had forcefully turned into a tyrant. Back in the tomb of the Divine Emperor, she made a deal with Long Ao. She lifted the seal on Long Ao. And Long Ao took her to the real tomb of the Divine Emperor. At that time, she hadn't truly unlocked Long Ao's seal. However, he still secretly made some movements that Long Ao wasn't aware of. About 4 hours later, Long Ao's seal would naturally be lifted. And now, it was time for Long Ao's seal to be lifted. Yiqing Luo had guessed that Long Ao would come to settle the score with her, but she had not expected that. It would be so fast. Why did I look for you? You still have the guts to ask. Long Ao's tone was icy cold, as if a bone-piercing chill pierced into Yiqing Luo's skin. Yiqing Luo's expression remained unchanged as she continued to tilt her head and smiled sweetly. How would I know if you're not here? Long Ao's entire body's yin qi wreaked havoc as it entangled towards Yiqing Luo. All right, remove the seal for this seat. How dare you abandon this seat? Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as she replied seriously. Aren't you already out now? Long Ao. Was coming out now the main point? Most importantly, she had lied to him before this. Long Ao expressed that he was completely unable to accept it. He had lived for tens of thousands of years, but he was actually being played by a girl like this. I've already stayed here for more than 10,000 years. Do you really need another 4 hours? Yiqing Luo's slender fingers touched her chin. Anyway, the ending is that you've already unlocked the seal and regained your freedom. That's enough, isn't it? Long Ao. He actually felt that it made sense. Long Ao retracted his yin qi and jumped onto a tree beside Yiqing Luo. Now that you've regained your freedom, why did you come looking for me? Yiqing Luo turned her head over to look at him. You've already unlocked the seal, so my vast aqua god relic to you isn't of much use. Long Ao had a gloomy expression on his face. He then said in a deadly earnest manner, This lord has been sealed by that woman Feng Gu for so long. So, I have long been disconnected from this world. I only know you, so of course I have to follow you. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. I don't seem to be very familiar with you. She paused and reminded him, before this, you wanted to take my life. Long Ao waved his hand. Aren't you still alive? Do you need to harp on this trivial matter over and over again? Therefore, was it his fault that she didn't die because of him? Yiqing Luo was so angry that she laughed. She was not interested in having this unpredictable time bomb by her side. What if it blew up for no reason? Wouldn't she vomit to death? He probably saw through Yiqing Luo's rejection. Long Ao leaned against the tree with the attitude of a big boss. His tone was sinister and carried a tinge of complacency. Listen, you are looking for the monster that was sealed by that woman in the Devil Destruction Mountain. Yiqing Luo originally didn't intend to bother about him. But after hearing this sentence, her expression changed slightly as her gaze congealed. You know about it? The monster, in Long Ao's words, was probably referring to Huang Wuyo. In the eyes of the Devil Dragon King like Long Ao, Huang Wuyo had become a monster. That Huang Wuyo, what was his identity? Chapter 5178. Of course this seat knows. Long Ao gave a sinister smile. In this world, there's nothing that this seat doesn't know. Yiqing Luo retorted coldly, then why don't you know that you'll be sealed by my mother? Long Ao. The rampaging Yin Qi surged once again. Long Ao looked rather flustered and exasperated. All right, if you don't want to know where that monster is sealed at, then forget it, this seat will go myself. Yiqing Luo. He was still acting like a tsundere. This Long Ao, why did his name and his aura totally not match? Where's the cool and aloof Azura from hell who was filled with killing intent? She felt. Her Uncle Bone was probably more worthy of the name Long Ao. Yiqing Luo straightened her body as she turned sideways to look at him. Will you be so kind? This Long Ao wasn't evil, but he was absolutely not a righteous person. Everything depended on his mood. Yiqing Luo didn't feel that Long Ao was purely out of touch with the world and wanted to pester her. Perhaps this Long Ao was harboring the thought of taking revenge on Feng Gu. Perhaps when he brought her to the place where Huang Wuyo was sealed, then in front of her, he would release Huang Wuyo's seal. Yiqing Luo believed Long Ao, this bastard, would never do such a stupid thing. Yiqing Luo didn't conceal his suspicions. So infuriated that Long Ao's sinister aura started to sweep around. He flicked his black robe as he leapt down from the tree. Believe it or not, it's up to you. The wide black robe was like a black fog as it rolled down, forming a cold arc in the air. In a blink of an eye, he disappeared in front of Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's face didn't reveal much emotions. She curled her lips very lightly as her legs dangled in mid-air. With a delicate young lady's look, she sighed softly. Tisk, I just wanted to agree to him and he left. Forget it, forget it. Swoosh, in the air, there was the sound of clothes brushing past. Immediately following that, the tree which Yiqing Luo was on shook violently. That man dressed in black robe, who was filled with an austere aura, appeared once again in front of Yiqing Luo. He squatted on the tree trunk and pressed his hands beside his feet, like a dog sitting. That pair of dark and sinister eyes stared at Yiqing Luo, his face filled with an awkward and gloomy expression. This seat will give you one more chance. Do you want to find that monster's territory or not? This time round, Yiqing Luo didn't tease Long Ao anymore. This Long Ao's brain doesn't seem to be working very well at present. Moreover, he looks like a bloody murderer. But he looks like a clown. But, no matter how amusing a person was, there was still a bottom line. Long Ao had already bowed his head once. If she didn't let go, she was afraid that Long Ao wouldn't care about her anymore. Now, only Long Ao could find the place where Huang Wuyo was sealed. Let's go. What are you waiting for? Long Ao saw that the girl was still sitting in the same place. He couldn't help but urge her. Yiqing Luo replied, "Wait for my uncle and Uncle Gu to come back, then we'll." Finding a territory is so troublesome, to think that you're that girl Rao's daughter, so timid and useless. Long Ao didn't wait for Yiqing Luo to finish her sentence as he gave a look of disdain. He glanced sideways at Yiqing Luo. "Why? Are you afraid that this seat has no way to protect you?" Yiqing Luo. She totally didn't expect him to protect her. If he could stop scheming against her in the dark, she would be thankful, all right. Chapter 5179. Furthermore, his tone was filled with disdain. What was he trying to do? This was called vigilance. This was called using one's brain. But Long Ao had an impatient look, with a "go if you want, I can't be bothered to wait on you" expression. Yiqing Luo muttered to herself for some time before summoning Azure Dragon's son, Shiju. Yiqing Luo stroked Shiju's head, making it wait for Bloodbone Barbaric King and Feng Liqiong's arrival. Then she told them about this matter. Shiju seemed to have successfully evolved into a leopard dragon. Leopard dragon was actually a collective term. Currently, Shiju's original body was a huge dragon, but the dragon scales on its body were like leopard prints. Especially since Shiju not only possessed the dragon's skills, it also possessed the leopard's skills. It was simply an invincible combination. Most importantly, Shiju could smoothly interact with other humans now. This was the most important reason why Yiqing Luo kept it. The other reason was for safety. Although Shiju had advanced, it was still a dragon. But a young child was after all a young child. Shiju was the most suitable one among her war pets. If any accident happened while heading towards Huang Guio's sealed grounds, it would be terrible. Furthermore, Shiju had signed a contract with her. Shiju could sense her location. It could also bring Bloodbone Barbaric King and Feng Liqiong to follow her aura to look for her. Shiju obediently rubbed against Yiqing Luo's palm and headed towards the foot of Devil Destruction Mountain, towards the direction where the tent was set up. Seeing Shiju's figure disappearing, Yiqing Luo then leapt down from the tree as her pink dress fluttered in the wind. When she landed stably on the ground, her dress fluttered like peach blossoms in full bloom, extremely beautiful. She squinted at Long Ao. "All right, let's go." Troublesome. Long Ao curled his lips as he spat out 2 words eerily. Following that, his black robe fluttered as he headed towards Devil Destruction Mountain. Yiqing Luo followed closely. Long Ao's speed was extremely fast. Even with Yiqing Luo's agility, she needed to be extremely serious before she could keep up. It showed that Long Ao's true ability had far exceeded her current understanding. Yiqing Luo wasn't sure. If Long Ao displayed a little more ability, under the premise that she didn't need to rely on the blink movement, would she be able to catch up to Long Ao? Yiqing Luo suppressed the suspicions she had towards Long Ao and didn't think too much about it. As long as he could grasp Long Ao's mind. Even if she couldn't make Long Ao help her. At the very least, they couldn't become enemies. However, she was afraid that Long Ao was teasing her by leading this path, right? Was he bringing her around the Devil Destruction Mountain? They had already circled around Devil Destruction Mountain by more than 1 round. Long Ao didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. Yiqing Luo was contemplating if she should call out to Long Ao, to have a good talk with him about the principles of life. At this moment, Long Ao's footsteps suddenly halted as he raised his palm and struck down towards Yiqing Luo. Wow, 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 wow. Yiqing Luo almost cursed out loud, her fingers raised and the glower flame fan opened up, ready to strike back. That ghastly cold wind from his palm brushed past Yiqing Luo's side, as it crashed onto a big tree behind her. Rumble. There was a deafening collapse. The tree fell down with a loud bang, and a deep pit was formed in the ground. Yiqing Luo, so that palm was not meant for her. Then, what was the meaning of him hitting a tree? Was he trying to show off his might? Yiqing Luo turned her head, as she looked at that huge deep pit. Just as she was about to open her mouth, her peripheral vision suddenly swept. At the deep pit where the big tree had collapsed, a flight of stairs could be faintly seen, extending down along the deep pit. Chapter 5180. That was underground passage? Yiqing Luo's starry pupils contracted slightly as she was shocked and pleasantly surprised. Behind her, a chilly voice broke her surprise. Feng family's lass, what are you trying to do? That sinister, chilly voice seemed to be wrapped with the world's most intense malice. Yiqing Luo thought of her earlier actions as she turned her head away awkwardly. Long Ao's gaze was filled with ridicule and disdain as he stared at her opened glower flame fan. Her stance was as though she was going to have a fight with him. Yiqing Luo's mind spun quickly, and just as Long Ao was about to open his mouth again, she cut off his words with a flowery smile. I'm feeling a little hot, so I'm fanning. Saying that, she waved the glower flame fan and fanned herself twice. Luckily her weapon was a fan. If it was a huge machete. Could it be that she had to explain that she was lifting weights? She simply didn't dare to think about it. Long Ao snorted coldly and couldn't be bothered to haggle with her. It better be like this. Finishing his words, he walked past Yiqing Luo and directly headed towards that underground passage. The pitch-black pit was pitch black as far as the eye could see. She could only vaguely see the long staircase, which was hidden in the darkness. Long Ao had already walked in. She had walked all the way here. Yiqing Luo naturally didn't have any hesitation. She lifted her feet and followed Long Ao in. The moment she stepped on the staircase, Yiqing Luo only felt a bone-piercing, dense yin qi rushing towards her. This yin qi. It was different from Long Ao's body. Long Ao's entire body was emitting a kind of extremely aggressive, malicious yin qi, as if he wanted to kill her at any time. But this yin qi was the kind of yin qi that made one's hair stand on end from the depths of one's heart. It was as though someone was in the dark, eyeing her covetously. It made her hair stand on end. There was a feeling that her inner heart was being peeped at. Whereas in front was a stretch of boundless darkness, a darkness without a single bit of light. Yiqing Luo could only rely on the sound of Long Ao's steps on the staircase to differentiate his position. How did you know that there's an underground passage here? Yiqing Luo followed her intuition and asked as she walked down. Long Ao was only 2 or 3 steps away from her. His voice seemed even more gloomy and cold in the darkness. Do you think that I'm a fool like you? Do you think that you can't find a place even after looking for a long time? Have you forgotten why I became the one who opened the door of the Divine Emperor's tomb? Yi Fuqian sneered without holding back. 4. Seal the entrance of the Divine Emperor's tomb and seal the aura of the tomb. As for Huang Wuyo, he was sealed here by Feng Gu. The reason why Feng Gu built the Divine Emperor's tomb here was to suppress Huang Wuyo. Therefore, how could Long Ao not know where Huang Wuyo was sealed? She had asked a stupid question. What do you want to do after you find the place of that monster? Long Ao suddenly retracted his mocking attitude and asked in a casual manner. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes but didn't reply. Long Ao continued, don't tell me that you want to reseal that monster for your mother? I can't. Yiqing Luo's brows rose. Long Ao didn't give her any face as he laughed out. You weakling, I'm afraid you don't know that monster's ability. Just based on you. You want to seal that monster? Do you know that in order to kill him, your mother even sacrificed her life and only managed to seal him? Just based on you. I'm afraid even 10 lives aren't enough for you to play with. Chapter 5181. Long Aotian's tone was filled with ridicule. Even though she was in the dark, Yiqing Luo could feel Long Aotian's contemptuous and ridiculing gaze. Yiqing Luo was calm and wasn't affected by Long Aotian's ridicule. How would I know if I don't try? So many years have passed, the seal should have loosened. I heard that the Dark Nether Palace, a force that has spread to all the major realms without anyone noticing and has become a huge force, was founded by his divine sense. Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk when she mentioned the Palace of Darkness. Long Outyan obviously sensed the change in her emotions as he sneered, "Do you think that the monster is suppressed by the seal now? You can take the opportunity to seal him again. I'll tell you this." Long Outyan suddenly stopped in his tracks. In the dark, he accurately caught her wrist. That icy cold touch made Yi Qing Luo shiver. She subconsciously wanted to shake his hand off. Long Outyan's voice was deep, revealing some unknown ridicule. "That monster, even if only one part of his consciousness is outside, to kill you is as easy as flipping his palm." This sentence came out from Long Outyan's mouth. Regarding Huang Wuyo's evaluation, it was indeed too high. After all, people like Long Outyan rarely complimented others. To be praised by Long Outyan, his ability was not to be belittled. But what did Long Outyan's words mean by despising her? Did he look down on her? Don't think that you can surpass that woman just because you obtained the God Emperor's inheritance. Long Outyan looked at her in disdain in the dark. That woman's ability. I'm afraid no one in this world can surpass her, if not because. When he said this, his tone turned cold and he scoffed, full of disdain and ridicule. Yi Qing Luo knew what Long Outyan had not finished his sentence. Actually, speaking of, Feng Ji's ability was definitely above Huang Wuyo, to a level that no one could surpass. But Feng Ge still gave up her life in order to seal Huang Wuyo. All these, just because she was a woman. Because a woman's heart was soft. Because a woman, no matter how much hatred she had, she still loved that man. Because of love. That was why she paid with her life. Because he had sacrificed his life, the longing and worry for his daughter for 10,000 years had worn away all the love he had for her. In the end, it was because one had never loved, and the other was deeply in love. That's why it ended up like this. Yi Qing Luo's long eyelashes fluttered lightly. She slightly lowered her eyebrows, and a wisp of coldness flowed through her charming eyes. Her fair and delicate fingers slightly clenched. She said, "So, I will solve this problem for Mother. Deal with it?" Long Outyan sneered without giving him any face. "You? How do you plan to deal with it?" Yi Qing Luo's vision drooped slightly as she stared at her own hands without blinking. Although nothing could be seen in the darkness. However, her eyes were still bright as if they had been washed. Little girl from the Feng family, inheriting the Divine Emperor's inheritance doesn't mean you can inherit that woman's power. The Divine Emperor's inheritance is the Divine Emperor's inheritance. At most, it can only relieve some of the burden on your body, but everything still depends on your own strength. Long Outyan laughed coldly. "You're a weakling. Even if you inherited the Divine Emperor's legacy, you're still a weakling." This point, Yi Qing Luo understood clearly. The so-called Divine Emperor's inheritance only inherited the Divine Emperor's imprint. Trash 7th Young Mistress, Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Trash 7th Young Mistress, Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. She could not stay out of this matter just because she could not deal with Huang Wuyo. It was not only because she had promised Feng Ge. Or was it because? It was also for her own sake. Even if she didn't look for Huang Wuyo, Huang Wuyo would not let her off either. Between her and Huang Wuyo, eventually, one person would disappear from this world. It would be best if he could seal Huang Wuyo completely. But if it really came to that, she would not be soft-hearted. Long Ao remained silent for a while. Then, he coldly snorted, and restrained his gloomy and cold aura. He flicked his sleeves, and continued to walk forward. "Suit yourself." Yi Qing Luo confirmed Long Ao's direction in the dark based on the footsteps. She chuckled and followed him, saying, "Lord Mystic Dragon will help me, right? Chapter 5183. Long Ao spurted out a cold stream from his nose as he gave a ridiculing laugh. He didn't give a direct answer. But that sneer seemed to be ridiculing Yi Qing Luo's whims. Yi Qing Luo didn't continue asking. She didn't know what had happened between Long Ao and her mother. But from Long Ao's words earlier, she could feel that Long Ao didn't hate her mother at all. More than that, there was a little care. Otherwise, based on Long Ao's character, Fenggu had sealed him for thousands of years, and after he unlocked the seal, he actually didn't show any signs of rage. Although his words weren't respectful towards Fenggu, it also contained zero disdain. But Yi Qing Luo could obviously feel that Long Ao's words were disdainful. She wasn't sure. When she was dealing with Huang Guiyou and met with danger, would Long Ao help her? But she could be sure. At least Long Ao wouldn't stab her in the back. That was enough. Along the way, there were no more words. The two of them walked down in the darkness. Yi Qing Luo had been calculating the time. About half an hour or so. Long Ao's footsteps halted. Yi Qing Luo almost knocked into him. Long Ao had already retreated backwards, avoiding Yi Qing Luo's touch. After Yi Qing Luo stabilized her footsteps, she stretched out her legs and circled around the surroundings to ascertain that it was flat ground before she opened her mouth. We've reached? Do you think it's that simple? Long Ao sneered, not knowing if it was her misconception. Long Ao's voice was heavy with breathing. But it was only for a moment. Yi Qing Luo walked towards him, trying to stretch out her hand to grab him. Long Ao retreated backwards once again. So scared that your legs are soft and you still need this seat to support you? He sneered coldly. If you're afraid, then scram back now. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips and suddenly her fingertips pressed on the profound phoenix ring. I remember, I have a luminous pearl in my realm ring, I'll take it out first. If you want to die, then take it out. Long Ao's gloomy deep voice was like an icy chill, eroding Yi Qing Luo's eardrums. This seat won't save you. Yi Qing Luo's actions paused. Long Ao said in a mocking tone, this is the place of that monster. You took the luminous pearl because you were afraid that he would not know. Did you come to find him? Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers tightened and clenched again. He found his voice after a long while. Then, he said in a slightly hoarse voice, Long Ao, your voice is somewhat wrong. Long Ao's breathing slightly froze. Soon after, he laughed mockingly. What's wrong with my voice? I'm afraid you've been scared out of your wits, and your mind isn't clear, right? He seemed to be impatient and couldn't be bothered with Yi Qing Luo's mental state as he walked forward. If you want to find that monster, then follow me, don't mess around with other messy things. What else was Yi Qing Luo thinking about? However, Long Ao's pace was extremely fast. Listening to the sound of his footsteps, it seemed that he was quite a distance away from her. She could only suppress the restlessness in her heart and chase after him. He had barely taken 2 steps. Suddenly, in the underground tunnel, a gust of extremely cold hurricane surged, rushing so hard that Yi Qing Luo shut her eyes, as she subconsciously raised her hand to cover her face. That gust of extremely cold, gloomy and strange aura scuttled up from the bottom of Yi Qing Luo's feet. The majestic and vast profound energy confined her. We've been discovered by that monster. In front, Long Ao's angry voice was heard. This time, Yi Qing Luo didn't hear wrongly. His voice was filled with suppressed panting, as though he was restraining something. Chapter 5184. Long Ao. Yi Qing Luo had just opened her mouth when a gust of biting cold yin qi rushed into her mouth. The surrounding profound light was filled with a biting cold murderous intent. The yin qi in the surroundings seemed to have gathered together. She was totally unable to move and could only allow that yin qi to spread throughout her limbs and bones. Slap. A slap landed on her back. That slap wasn't considered heavy, but it wasn't light either. It made Yiqing Luo feel a stinging pain. Are you really that girl's daughter? Why are you so stupid? A hand clasped her wrist. Following that, there was a strong suction force that pulled her out of the Yin Chi's restraint. Which was that slap? It dispersed the Yin Chi that was running around in his body. The pitch-black tunnel. The next moment, it became bright. Yiqing Luo's eyes were stimulated so much that she closed her eyes. When she opened her eyes again, she saw a handsome man dressed in black standing 5 steps in front of her. That figure, tall and slender. That face, handsome and imposing. On the surface, he gave off the feeling of a delicate scholar. But between his brows, there was a treacherous, sinister aura. Yiqing Luo only needed one look to recognize him. Huang Wuyo. No. To be more precise, this was Huang Wuyo's consciousness. Previously at the Emperor God's tomb. That wisp of Huang Wuyo's consciousness had been crushed by her. She didn't expect that in such a short period of time, Huang Wuyo could split out another wisp of consciousness. And this Huang Wuyo in front of her. Obviously compared to the Huang Wuyo she met in the Emperor God's tomb, his aura was much stronger. Was it because? Was this his territory? The consciousness that Huang Wuyo split out wasn't Huang Wuyo, but it was indeed Huang Wuyo. Whatever the consciousness sensed, Huang Wuyo's sealed body could feel it. And like earlier, when Yiqing Luo crushed that wisp of consciousness, to Huang Wuyo, it was a heavy blow. My dear daughter, you miss your father already? Huang Wuyo's lips curled into a sinister smile. That smile didn't reach his eyes at all. That pair of eyes that seemed to be so cold that there was not the slightest bit of warmth made people shudder. Yiqing Luo stared at Huang Wuyo as her pupils contracted slightly. You're not worthy. Not worthy to call her daughter. He didn't deserve the sacred title of daddy. Huang Wuyo did not get angry. Instead, the smile on his lips grew wider, and the cold aura he exuded became stronger. No matter how unwilling you are to admit it, your father is still your father. His black robe fluttered despite the lack of wind. Mysterious Yin Chi lingered around his body, forming a black oval protective shield that enveloped him. She only met his gaze. Yiqing Luo's hands and feet turned cold. She pursed her lips, shifted her gaze, and looked in the direction of Long Ao. Long Ao, her words stopped at the tip of her lips. Beside her, Long Ao, who was originally filled with ruthlessness and murderous intent, was lightly panting at this moment. He stood not far behind her on her left side. That black brocade robe was already covered in blood. His entire body was covered with scars. Even his face, which was half covered in scales and half handsome, had a few scratches. Yiqing Luo's throat tightened. How did you? No wonder, till the end, Long Ao didn't say a single word. No wonder, after hearing Long Ao's voice, she felt strange. No wonder, Long Ao didn't allow her to get close, and didn't allow her to touch him. The injuries on Long Ao's body were obviously new. Were the injuries he got when he walked down that tunnel? Chapter 5185. Long Aotian's face was dark and cold. The murderous look in his eyes was extremely obvious. He raised his hand and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Drops of blood, Chapter 5186, The Grave of Huang Wuyo, 8, please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.